Hello, and welcome to the Aligned Human Project. I'm your host, Dawn Elgin, and I am so happy that you are here. Before we begin, I want to name what this episode is really about. If you've been feeling anxious, emotionally raw, ungrounded, or quietly overwhelmed by the state of the world, this conversation is for you. This isn't an episode about fixing yourself, staying positive, or figuring everything out. It's about understanding what actually is happening beneath the surface and how to return to center when everything around you feels unsteady. In this episode, we'll explore why so many people feel dysregulated right now, why effort and coping strategies often fall short, and what it truly means to live from alignment instead of reaction. You'll leave with a clear understanding of what you're experiencing, a felt sense of steadiness in your body, and a new way to relate to uncertainty without losing yourself inside of it. This conversation is also an invitation into a longer journey of becoming an aligned human in a chaotic world, not by escaping what's happening, but by meeting it with presence, coherence, and choice. Let's begin. Welcome to the Aligned Human Project podcast, where consciousness meets creation and hustle gives way to harmony. I'm Dawn Elgin, contrarian soul guide, spiritual CEO, and founder of Practical Spiritualism. This is a space where we explore what it truly means to be human, aligned, awakened, and in flow with the field of life itself. Together, we'll bridge science and spirit, energy and embodiment, purpose and prosperity, so you can remember who you are beneath the programming and reclaim the power to create in full alignment with your soul. Because the next evolution of humanity isn't out there, it's in here. This is the Aligned Human Project. So first and foremost, we are living in a dysregulated world. Now, for most of us, that's not shocking. Of course, we feel dysregulated. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of uncertainty. And so the question becomes, how am I supposed to find this sense of peace when everything around me feels unsafe, insecure? Presence begins right now, not once we understand. And that can be difficult. Remember when I started working with the laws of co-creation? And one of the laws, I think it was Law 5, was explained as releasing expectations, letting go of judgments, and the need to know why things happen as they do. And I would say that right now, more than ever, we are hearing this. We are, and maybe we're even saying it. And I can even catch myself in it. It's like this great reminder. This isn't just something actively we do on our healing journey, physical, mental, emotional. It's actually something that we need to use in everyday life. You see, the laws, when they were introduced to me about 8 years ago, the first 7 of them, they were introduced to me at a time of wanting to understand how come some people heal and some people don't. But not understanding that what these laws were actually giving us is this deeper understanding that we're co-creating the world. So the world's not happening to us, and it's not happening for us, it's happening through us. And there is an absolute co-creation. And so that internal state that we have, if the internal state is, lack or I'm not safe, I don't feel secure right now, I'm unsure of what's going on, what's wrong with people, and this is the place that we come from, then we are going to see that mirrored around us as well. It does not mean that it is our fault that the world is behaving the way that it is right now, but we are in the beginning of really a big divide that is happening, and we have an opportunity, we have options right now. We can close our eyes and keep going down the route that we've been going and having apathy and not, really creating the change that we desire. And what I mean by that is we can go down the road where it's somebody else's job to do it. Or we can shift over into the seat of choosing to become more conscious, choosing to become more aware, So instead of going into coping strategies that are unhealthy, we maybe use coping strategies that are healthy. Maybe those coping strategies are journaling and what I would refer to as brain dumping, getting that chaos out of the head so that you can really see what's underneath this. And a lot of the times, what's really underneath it is something I might be able to solve for myself instead of looking at the world out there to solve it for me. It could be healthy coping strategies of meditation, of breath work, of presence practice with our children, with our loved ones. It can be yoga. All of these are extremely healthy ways to cope. It could be working out and exercise, nature walking, healthy cooking classes. There's so many great ways that we can go out there and start creating healthier coping mechanisms than the ones that we often turn to, scrolling, doom scrolling, watching TV, all these things that are bombarding our nervous system with more stimulation when the nervous system's already dysregulated. And so what we want to do is find ways to regulate ourselves rather than perpetuate the dysregulation. And the importance of this is all of those coping strategies I just gave you that were healthy are coping strategies that also encourage the language of we and us, as in together as in unity, versus the concept of us versus them. So the first thing that I want to talk about on this is there is no war out there. There is no war of good and evil. The war that we perceive outside ourselves is the battle that often happens within ourselves. And it happens in every single moment of the day. And so rather than fearing the world outside of ourselves, how can we come back into the stillness, into the quiet, to make conscious, aware decisions and choices within ourselves? And so there's that old Cherokee parable of the two wolves and one wolf. And so there's a battle or a war within each of us between these two wolves. And one wolf is all that is good. It is love, it's patience, compassion, it's empathy. And the other wolf is all that is evil. It is anger, resentment, bitterness. And so these two wolves are constantly at war within ourselves. The grandfather's telling his son about this, and the grandson says, which wolf wins? And the grandfather says, the one you feed. And so we need to ask ourselves, what am I feeding within myself today? And there's ways that we can support ourselves to feed with intention the good wolf, the wolf that brings us closer to love. Even questioning, just one question, is this bringing me closer to love or is this bringing me closer to fear? Is this TV show, is this thing that I'm watching while I'm doom scrolling, is TikTok, is it bringing me closer to love or is it bringing me closer to fear? And for some of us, it actually might be bringing us closer. We might be watching, spiritual teachers. We might be listening to things that are actually bringing us closer in. So it's not all bad. It's just, what are you feeding yourself? And making a choice when we start actively asking that question. And if the question or the answer to that is fear or anger or rage or division, then stop. And it's our job to stop ourselves. And at that moment, say, you're on, I'll use Facebook because it's the one I can easily move to, but 3 little buttons at the top, we click them and we say, I don't want to see this. And we start cleaning up our feed and we get feed hygiene happening. If we are getting it on Instagram, we can unfollow things that are bringing us closer to anger and hate and discord within our community, within our families, within ourselves. And so is this bringing me closer to love or is this bringing me closer to fear? And if it's bringing us closer to fear, it's our opportunity to say no and choose again. We can turn off the TV. We can change the channel. We can unfollow. We can unsubscribe. We have options. And then we can start filling our cup back up with things that bring us closer to love, closer to connection, closer to being in constant connection with the divine matrix, with consciousness, with compassion, that force that holds the universe together. So when we are in this collective field, when it is incoherent, when it's in dissonance, then we will get warnings or alerts that we feel somatically in our bodies. And one of those is the feeling of anxiety. The other one is anger or fear. So there's signals in the field that are telling us what's going on. They're not personal defects. We make a mistake when we say, I have anxiety. You're experiencing it. And you're experiencing it because we don't feel secure and safe, centered in ourself and our soul, in this universe. I'm out there in this world. And so I feel anxious about this. And we need to remember how to come back inward. Rage is the same, or anger. Anger is a defense mechanism to fear. It is our way that we try to defend because we don't want to feel fear. And fear is the illusion of separation, the illusion that we're going to lose someone or something. And within that, something could be respect, it could be money, it could be our livelihood, it could be safety. So once we understand that we have fear, what is it where am I scared of losing? And we need to go into this. It's awareness that gives us our power back. And I want you to remember that. Power happens when we are present, when we are back in our own awareness rather than not wanting to look at something. We go into it, even when it seems a little ugly. But once we start going in there, we start getting all the answers. And that's when we start taking all of our power back. I need you to understand that resistance to what is happening, to not wanting to deal with it, to not wanting to look at it, is what intensifies our suffering. This is what we mean when we say pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. You do not need to suffer. We are going to feel pain. We are humans. And we have these beautiful, not fragile, resilient bodies, minds, hearts, spirits. And we are going to feel pain. It's part of the experience. But the suffering happens when we cling to it, when we resist it, when we don't want to accept it. And so learning how to be present with ourselves, present in this moment, will help end suffering. The laws of field and form are like little gifts of wisdom. They not only teach us how to heal, how to release, how to let go, they also teach us how to create. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. If we really look at the laws and we can let go of the resistance, this wanting to push away from the uncomfortable, we have all of the things that we need to do this. It's just often we don't like it. So as we're going through this, as we are living in this dysregulated world, what we are feeling is information, not failure. We're feeling information, and we need to remember how to decipher it, how to unlearn so that we can remember. Remember that we are divine beings. We are God incarnated. We can get through all of this. We just need to remember the natural state of our beingness. And as we're remembering, remember that emotion is data. It's information. It's not an identity. So let's head back over to those coping mechanisms for a moment, because there's some that are just so easy, and we just don't want to feel so much. We just want to feel some calm, some peace, some quiet in a place where people are screaming and yelling and crying. So it's understandable why we have a desire to get the quiet. The thing is a lot of those coping mechanisms, they don't actually give us the peace we desire. Instead, they really reinforce the suffering we experience. It just takes longer. And what they also do is they create a deeper separation, and they slow our ability to gain greater resilience. So understanding that these control mechanisms are an impulse to survive. So I don't want us to shame ourselves. I don't want us to belittle ourselves or beat ourselves up for going through or needing to take pauses or a break, but maybe time them. Start with micro moments, coping strategies that are focused only on our behavior. So whether that is the way that we're eating, the way that we're drinking, the way that we are scrolling or watching TV or consuming content. Maybe it is going out in the world and being really busy. Maybe it is working harder. Maybe it is working out harder. All of these things, when they're focused on our behaviors, they collapse when our field is dysregulated. And so it's important that we are creating rituals for ourselves that help to regulate, to create coherence in our field so that it can support our form. Because what ends up happening if we don't find those rituals that are for ourselves, and you might need to tweak them. It took me years to keep tweaking and tweaking my rituals in the morning and throughout the day to find what really works for me. And that's one of the reasons I share all of them with you guys, is because then you can figure out what works for you. And does this not work, or am I resisting whatever this is? For me, brain dumping or journaling in the morning was a huge resistance. But once I got into it and started to explore it differently, putting my negative thoughts and feelings onto paper. And when I say negative, what I really mean is not bad. I just mean that they have a negative emotional draw. So having those emotions or experiencing them for long periods of time drains my energy. So when I'm feeling anxious or panic or anger or frustration, putting them onto paper, first off, stops me from them looping in my head and stops me from projecting them into this world. And so my resistance to that was, a lot of it was because I didn't want to admit what was actually going on inside my head because I judged it as bad. Once I get it onto paper, though, then I'm like, well, what's that actually about? What is that thought trying to cover up? What is that anger? Anger is defending fear. So it's the fear it's trying to protect. So when we start looking at it from a different point of view, we perceive it slightly more as a witness as opposed to being involved in it. Then we can start to change the way that we see these things. Instead of trying to force ourselves or beat ourselves up or pressure ourselves, we start getting a little bit softer, a little bit more compassionate with how we need to heal ourselves, to be able to regulate ourselves so that we can exist in this world no matter what is happening. To find the sense of groundedness, not in our external experiences, but within ourselves. Now remember, as we are out there, that force, urgency, and pressure are all signs of misalignment, not discipline. And most self-improvement fails. Most of our desires or dreams to correct, to heal, to remember, to expand, they often fail because we skip the field, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs. We need to get into that subtle energy because it's the collapsing of the subtle energy that creates the actual experience, that creates the physical body, the physical experience of the world around us. So remember, when we try to fix form without tending to the field, we exhaust ourselves. So all of this sounds great, but how do we do it? How do we get to a place where we can find that groundedness? Well, the first thing is we move to the law of presence, well, actually the law of power. And power is presence. Presence is power. They coexist with each other. And so we want to create presence as a living relationship, not as a practice that we need to master. So when I am present in a conversation, when I'm present here in this moment, talking to you, I don't have anxiety about the world out there. It's not that I'm ignoring it. It's just that in this moment, I'm right here. And the more that I can be present in my own body, present with my emotions, present in someone else's pain, present witnessing or listening to somebody else's experiences, the more I am present, the more I can feel true safety and security. Because safety and security that are long lasting always begin within ourselves. It took me a while to realize that the person that abandoned me the most was me. that every time I was in somebody else's business, I wasn't home. I couldn't be in somebody else's house and in my own house at the same time. And so if I wasn't home, then who was running the house? The mind, the body, they don't know what to do with these things. They're beautiful tools of creation, but they're not designed to run the home. And so it's important to understand that the more that we come back, we stay in our own business. What should I be doing? Not what should they be doing? The more that we start to become a living example of our life, the more we find that sense of security within ourselves. We start to be able to trust that no matter what happens out there, we will be able to pivot. We will be present and be able to make a decision that's in true time, not in fake conversations of what ifs. When we realize this, that our power comes from awareness. So first we have presence, we're here. When I'm present here, I can become aware of my experience. The more awareness that I have, the more power that I have. The power to make a choice, not to control, but to restore myself. Regulation restores access to our choice. All these things come when we get really present. What is the reason that meditation and yoga are practices that we can use as coping mechanisms that are healthy? Because they're practices of presence. One is presence with the internal experience, with this moment in the stillness. And the other is an awareness practice, a presence practice in motion, whether that is slow, medium, or fast. So we learn how to regulate ourselves and come back to the center, come back to the moment, understanding that center isn't a destination, it's a rhythm. It's a flow, a pulse that lives within us. And here's the truth. Center is where choice becomes available again. It's in the present moment that we make true choice. We respond to what's happening in this world instead of reacting from a place that is actually being driven by those fears, being driven by our past experiences. The important thing for us to understand is that alignment has to come before intention. So, and what I mean by that is we can have the intention where we want to become more aligned. That would be the first step. And then we want to create that alignment within ourselves. And so it's important that we have those rituals and we're creating or intending from a place of coherence, from a place of connectedness. Because if we don't create from that state, so if I'm even putting out an intention state of abundance, but I'm doing it from a state of lack, then I'm not going to be able to create the abundance that I want to create. So I'm trying to get a form from a lack that's not in coherence with it. We have a dissonance between what is deeply inside of me, I feel like I don't have enough, and what it is that I want to create, which is more. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create that alignment or that coherence within ourselves. You can do this by doing heart coherence breathing, by bringing ourselves into states like using meditation, yoga. So a lot of these things that help us find the coherence first. Then we can start setting out the intention. So when we don't have that coherence, intention that is set without that coherence ends up creating pressure. It ends up creating self-judgment. So the coherence that we want, that we need to create this sense of groundedness, this sense of safety within ourselves, of belonging, of love, to create that coherence really expands. It expands our capacity to hold a vision, to hold an idea, to give it the space that it needs to birth it into life. Now, there are 8 characteristics of the soul. And if we can tap into these characteristics, then they will help us come back into alignment. And you can think of them as like little life vests or little floats that we can grab onto when we need them. So the 8 characteristics of the soul are curiosity. We can tap into the essence, the energy of curiosity when we're judging, when our minds are closing down. The others are compassion. So finding the compassion for others, that maybe we, instead of polarizing us versus them, we start to have compassion for what they're going through as well. We're all in this together. It's one world. So can we find the compassion for each other? They are just like me. I remember Pam Chodron talking about this practice. They're just like me. When I was driving and I was getting irritated with other drivers, I would look at them. And if somebody was distracted, I'd be like, oh, they're just like me. Somebody's angry. They're just like me. So they're just like me, to find that compassion with others. There's courage to ask questions. I would say the courage to ask questions is greater than the courage to say or speak your truth. Do you have the courage to ask questions and find answers that maybe you're scared to hear? Maybe you don't want to know. So we don't always have to share our opinions right away, but do we have the courage to ask questions to deeply understand somebody else? And you can see how having the courage to ask questions would bring in courage, curiosity, and then compassion. And so you can see how they start to flow together. We might tap into one first, but they'll pull the others towards us. The fourth one is confidence. And so when we're really in alignment with our soul, with spirit, there's this sense of confidence of like, this is the path. And whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I'm going to be able to stand in my own truth. I'm going to be able to stand here and hold this space from love rather than armoring up and getting ready to go into battle with you. Then there is clarity. So when we have moments of insight, when we give ourselves the space to quiet the mind, so often we think that the mind or the brain is where all the information in, and it's not. Our brain is directed by our heart. So there's way more that is needed when we tap back into our heart center, a place where many of us, myself very much included, there's a saying, the head is the place the soul goes to hide from the heart. And so I hid in my head for a long time, intellectually, what's the right decision to make? And it took me a lot of practice to come back into my heart and ask a question. And so one of the ways that we can get that clarity from a heart-centered space is to do our heart coherence breathing. And then as we find that center for ourselves, come back into that moment and then ask the question, what is the right answer for me? What's the next step that I need to take? And if we can ask, but especially in a yes, no question, we'll start to feel our yes and we'll start to feel our no's. And so checking in, like, what does my no feel like? What does my yes feel like? What is that experience for me? And then we'll be able to hear those answers or get clarity from that experience easier. Then we have calm. And so finding that sense of calm. Calm is available to us in every moment. Again, it's about coming back into the center, coming back into coherence. There is connectedness. So again, when we're looking for that connection between each of us, instead of the polarization of us versus them, right, wrong, good, bad, comparison, all things that separate us. So the more that we can come back into that interconnectedness, understanding that what I do affects you, what you do affects me. When we understand that and we do it from what is in the greatest good of the whole, us being part of that whole, will bring us into a deeper sense of connectedness. And then there's creativity. Creativity is a beautiful gift. It's when all of a sudden we get those new moments, those new ideas. Creation or creativity is not just about art or about, painting or dancing or music. Creativity is coming up with new ideas. Creativity is new projects, new connections. We create life. We create community. We create connection with each other. We are creators. We are the creator incarnated. And so creation or creativity is another characteristic of ourself that we can tap into when we are trying to find that center once again. So because of all of the chaos that's out there, I really wanted to make the intention to create this centering, to create a center within ourselves. And so that is the goal over the next few months, is to keep coming back into ways that we can use these laws of co-creation to support ourselves, to come back into alignment, to create that aligned human in each of us. And it's not one law that we need to tap into, but each law, they all flow and work together. Alignment is accumulative and it's lived. It's not an idea that is out there. It is an experience that is our natural state. It maybe isn't normal right now, but it is our natural state. And it is available to each of us. It is about making a new choice. It's about trying something that maybe is a little different, that's uncomfortable. It's getting curious with ourselves when we do things. I have friends that I'm like, have you tried yoga? And they're like, nope. And they just like push away. And I'm like, curious, what's that about? What is it that has you so opposed to trying something that's whole intention is to bring you into a state of calm and peace? And so coming back into the stillness and getting really curious with ourselves, starting to understand what's simmering underneath so that we can release it. Light is information. It is pure information. So when we shine light, when we shine awareness onto something, the shadows, the fears, they start to dissipate. They lose the strength that they once had. This work is meant to be embodied over time. And we just keep practicing one day at a time, one moment at a time, to come back to our center, to come back to ourselves. It's not about learning something new. It's actually more about unlearning. And it's about living something that is true. It's about remembering that we are divine creatures. We are pure perfection. And we've just gotten caught up in the drama of mind, in the drama of the world around us. And every time we come back into our presence, every time we come back and we start to witness and see the truth that is all around us, we come and find a little more peace. Remember, it's our responsibility to ourselves, to this world, to come back to center, to come back to ourself. And we do it in those micro moments. It's not, a fail when we get one little moment of peace. One little moment of clarity is a huge win. It doesn't need to be 24 hours of it. It'd be lovely, but what we're looking for is little moments. And when we take responsibility for ourselves, it's our job. I'm responsible for me. And when we take responsibility for it, this isn't blame. It's about getting agency over ourselves again. It's about no longer victimizing ourselves any further. Choice returns when presence is restored. Alignment becomes something that we renew rather than trying to achieve. Remember, even now, especially now, you can choose to return to yourself, to return home. You are not here to fix yourself. You are here to remember yourself. Because when you align with your truth, everything else begins to align with you. If this episode sparked something inside you, hit follow or subscribe and share it with someone walking their own path of awakening. And if you're ready to go deeper, you'll find free resources, programs, and community spaces waiting for you at practicalspiritualismco.com. Remember, alignment isn't a place you reach. It's a practice you live. So keep pausing, keep feeling, keep aligning. You are the field. You shape the form.